All right, welcome everybody to this episode 70 of the Navigating Now virtual roundtable series. It is good to be back in the chair. It is good to be here in 2022. And we are with an incredible guest who I will introduce in a moment. For those of you who are tuning in that don't know Tim Jones, we will give a proper introduction here in just a moment. But I want to welcome everybody to the table today. This is a very special beginning of the year episode. We here at Thoughtium are extremely excited to bring you the Navigating Now virtual roundtable series every week. We go live to LinkedIn, our Facebook page, YouTube, and all social media channels. We particularly want to welcome those folks who have tuned in via LinkedIn. This has been a platform that we've been sharing Navigating Now for almost 75 weeks. We're 70 episodes in. We have been extremely consistent on this platform, and we appreciate everybody's engagement and feedback. And we want to thank our LinkedIn community for joining us week over week over week. For those of you who are tuning in live on thoughtteam.com/live, please feel free to drop any questions into the chat box. We have some folks that are tuning in via Zoom. Chat box is open. So if you've got any questions throughout, please feel free. We'll try to monitor those. Navigating Now is a community of leaders, all of whom are making an impact globally or even locally. And these leaders come to the table every week and they share their very unique perspective on topics that matter most today. You know, we spun the Navigating Now platform up at the doorstep of the pandemic. And as we turn the corner for 2022, a lot has changed and not much has changed. And today we're extremely excited to set the table for this year, if you will, or potentially take any potential off the table. And today our guest, Tim Jones, who is so many things to a lot of people, will be joining the discussion. Tim is a perennial guest for us. This is maybe the fourth or fifth time that he's been on the show. He is a speaker. He is an author. He is an organizer of community and people. He's also a really great friend of mine and the entire Thoughtium team. So Tim, Happy New Year. I am so honored and proud to have you at the table for this first episode of 2022.
Happy New Year to you, Anthony, and to the Thoughtium family, all the viewers on all of the platforms. Welcome to the party. Let's get to it.
Absolutely. You know, it's interesting. Tim and I always like to get on about 10 or 15 minutes prior to going live. And we got on to prep and I looked at him and I said, Tim, I need this today. And you made a really interesting comment about here we are just, 6 days into the year, and we're already sensing that people are feeling tired. Maybe they didn't have a chance to pause or breathe over the course of the last few weeks, or maybe folks aren't so optimistic about moving through a lot of the challenges that we've had over the course of the last couple of years. What have you experienced from the leaders around you over the course of the holidays and as we look into 2022?
Well, interestingly enough, I think before 2020, right, it was hard to see we didn't know if anybody was battling, right? I could look on Instagram and think, man, she got another purse. They got another car. They upgraded their car to the bigger Mercedes. He's in Mexico again. Like once 2020 hit, it's almost like it gave us all this check engine light that pops on when we have a tough day and people see it. And it's just like, to be gentle. Intensive care needed for this particular person, because what 2020 revealed, and then unfortunately what 2021 revealed, is that we are all battling. It doesn't matter the generation. It doesn't matter the culture. It doesn't matter the geography. We are all going through this, and it appears to be winning.
Mm-hmm.
There's an appearance.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is that there's almost like a forced level of transparency or authenticity, and we're starting to see the true colors.
You have no other choice, right? People they can't hold it back any longer, and they're sharing with you about the loss of a loved one, about the loss of a job, or about a turn in life that they never, ever expected. And so now you don't have to mine for that information or believe that they live this miraculous life. You know that there's some humanity to them. And that's exactly where I believe the creator is trying to get us all to, is that we need each other. Nobody is crossing every T and dotting every I every single day.
Yeah, I love that. And we're going to get into some of these topics throughout today's episode. You know, for those folks, particularly who tune in to listen to Tim, I know there's a few folks that, you know, join when they see Tim on the thumbnail. I know I would as well too. Shout out to Jessica Katz, who's probably tuning in today. She's just a longtime fan of Tim and the show. I know there's a handful of folks on my team that have seen you on this platform several times, Tim. Let's talk a little bit about, because you in every essence of the word are a leader. You know, you lead through God, you lead with your family, you lead in the community, you lead in business. So, you know, I'd almost assume that, or call you an expert in leadership. And I'm curious, you know, how do you see leadership today, you know, at the doorstep of 2022 differently than you did this time last year or the year before?
Well, I think for me, humanity is always at the center at how I interact and how I make. It's not transaction. It's never been transactional with me. It's always been relational. And how the heck do I have a conversation on the escalator that can help me win somebody when it comes down to making a business decision in the boardroom? So that ride up the escalator or that ride up the elevator was not just about, it was about making a human connection so that if we had a disagreement when we got to the boardroom, we wouldn't lose each other. And I think oftentimes in management and leadership, we think if I'm the number one or I'm a part of the big three in the C-suite, that, you know, I'm on the top of the hierarchy chart. You know where I'm at, abide, please abide, or don't even please abide, fall in line. But I think it's this idea, this term is really old and really overused, is servant leadership. But it's this idea of that every power, all the power that I have, I'm tearing it up into little bitty pieces and redistributing it across the table, across the room. And so that there's this communal style of leadership and there's this X-Men style of leadership where no one cares who gets the credit and everyone cares and everyone gives credit where credit is due. There's no number one, there's no big three.
Yeah.
It's even playing field. And so that's what leadership has been prior to 2022 for me. I think it's been enhanced more because there's a certain type of care that's required to lead today. And if you don't have it, you shouldn't be in the game.
I love that. You know, and I would absolutely agree. If the beginning of 2020, the start of the pandemic, organizations and teams were looking up for direction, for policy, for continuity, that a lot of that direction and that policy and that continuity has been set, and, you know, new norms have been established. People now are looking up at their leader for day to day,
right, for
support, for enablement, and for a more custom approach to the way that they're being developed. And so, you know, I've just found recently that my leadership is being seen in everyday discussions more today than it ever has been before. And I love that analogy of taking your leadership and almost breaking it up, and every day seeing more of that width, you know, than you know, that top-down approach to setting direction.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, that's just the way that I've been able to. It's a game of addition, leadership. You want to add people to the team every step along the way. And I found that the best way to endear people to my leadership was to give them a piece of this authority and the power that they believe that I have.
Mm-hmm. So Tim, again, for those folks who know and love you, we know that you wear a lot of hats. So tell everybody what you've been up to most recently. Like, what have the last 6 months looked like for you?
Well, all I want to do is talk about motivation and inspiration. And so when you opened up our conversation today where I need this, my statement to myself was like, this is all I want to do. This is all I want to do is pour into people and help normalize and stabilize the season that they're going through. Because I say this all the time on your platform, it's only a season. And many of us that I know that listen to this are from the Midwest. And you know not to throw away those big, ugly long johns just because summer decides to drift until October. Winter is coming, baby. Like, winter is coming. And that's the same thing in our life. This is just a season. Don't throw the rest of your life away over a season. Even if it's a 2-year season, it's just a season. And so that's what I've been doing, is just every day sharing with people and just trying to help them navigate and narrate where you are. You are right on schedule. Don't give up. Don't throw in the towel. And I know people need that. And they need it. Sorry for my religious folks that are on here. They need it outside of Saturday, and they need it outside of Sunday. It's not just enough for them to go to temple on Saturday or church on Sunday, and that be enough to fuel them for the next 7 days. It's this, what they call in seminary, progressive sanctification. Every day I'm improving. Every day I'm getting better and responding differently than the way that I did yesterday. So that's what I've been doing. I've been writing, I've been sharing, and just speaking these thoughts.
And you're doing it with a consistency that models the actual philosophy that you stand for. And that is, every day pouring your glass out. I think the first time you were on the show, you made that incredible analogy that, your life's goal and your vocation is to die empty.
Yeah.
To pour all of what you have out, whether that's into your community, into your work, into your family. And that's really the impetus of Leave No Potential on the Table. I know particularly, or more tactically, in the last 6 months, you launched a book. And I want to maybe have you introduce the book, because for those of you who know you on this platform and have listened to your spoken word, I know you're one of my favorite followers on Instagram. Again, consistent messaging, you're right on schedule, great reminders. People know that you can step into any discussion with knowledge and wit and words that cut through. But you decided to write a book. So I want to have you introduce the book. And then I want to talk to you a little bit about the process of deciding to write a book and writing a book itself, which I think is fascinating.
Yeah, I think I developed this mantra to live my life by. I was listening to a podcast, one of my favorite authors, Malcolm Gladwell, and he casually just ended a sentence with "Leave no potential on the table." And I was working out, and I was like, "What did he say?" And it was just this casual 6-word phrase that he didn't even package or brand or anything. And I was just like, "That's it. That's the mantra or moniker that I want to live my life by, and I want to infect other people with it." And for me, it was a testament to me believing that I had something to offer to the world and not really knowing how to get that out of me, how to aggregate it and get it out to the world. And so since I did know, I would suppress it, right? They don't need to know that I'm a writer. They don't need to know that I believe myself to be a life coach at 24. They don't need to know that because they're not going to believe me anyway. So I'll suppress it. But once I heard this thought or that phrase, it was just like, now it's going to be an exercise of reverse suppression. How the heck do I get these gifts, skills, ability, and talent out of me into the world around me? Because I believe somebody needs it. I always thought that there was something that drew people to me, but I had the wrong idea about what it was. It wasn't charisma. It wasn't the sense of humor. It was like coming in access with crypto before anybody knew, or coming in contact with gold, or a hot topic, or a fire song before it blows up. And I just said, you know what? I want to get these gifts and skills and abilities and talents out of me. And how do I do it? Well, in early, out late, sharing motivation and inspiration that I felt like had guided and inspired me with the world around me. And so in 2006, I started putting my motivational thoughts on CD. If anybody has any CDs, maybe we can flash an example of a CD. But I would put my talks, about a 4 or 5 minute talk, on behind hip hop instrumentals, right? Anthony, like hip hop raised us. We met in elementary school, and hip hop really just kind of gave us our language, gave us our style, whatever, in our own little way. But I took these motivation and inspirational thoughts because I knew nobody wasn't ready to hear me yet, at least because I was suppressing. So I'm gonna put them on something that they're all familiar with. They're familiar with this instrumental, and I'll give them these inspirational words behind it. And I would hand these out in front of the Harold Washington Culture Center on 47th and King Drive. I would go into stores and like, look, can you turn that off and put this on? And I remember one of these popular brands that's still popular in Chicago today. He's like, man, what makes you think people want to listen to this? And so this was before I had, any type of congeniality or diplomacy. And I said, hey man, what makes you think they want to listen to this? Give me my CD back. and I walked out of there. But for me, it was a way, again, of just gradually pouring myself out and my gifts out into the world through CD, and then eventually through graduation speeches to 8th graders and high schoolers, to eventually landing with, I'm going to share every day publicly, bravely, consistently on social media, where I believe everyone spends all of their time.
Isn't it so interesting how, this book, you could look at it as the culmination of your career thus far. It's a lot of what you not only believe in, but what you've preached and practiced in a book that's available to now across the country and even the world. Isn't it interesting though that you can tie this book that you've spent the last 12 to 18 months writing to some of the activities that you did even as a child? And I'm a firm believer that my vocation today, my practitionership, my art form, is absolutely the result of staging my childhood bedroom with speakers and equipment that I used to buy at garage sales to create this immersive environment for listening to music. What I do today is designing and delivering experiences much like that. They're maybe not music oriented, but they have to do with bringing people together and creating great experiences. And it's interesting to hear your connection to the mixtape. And I almost want to challenge you to go even further back, Tim. You as a leader, leave no potential on the table. A lot of the work that you're doing today, what was maybe the earliest expression of your leadership that you can remember?
Well, I think one of the most important things about leadership today, particularly where I'm at, is I kind of step out of my world a lot, right? I was in the religious world, stepped out of the religious world, into the community world, into business school and all that. So contextualization is really important in leadership. And I learned that from moving from West Inglewood to Schaumburg in 1991. Right, I tell people I was affectionately the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Before he went from West Philly to Bel-Air, I went from West Inglewood to Schaumburg, a place where it was the first time I saw a tennis court, an Asian person, the lagoon where the water sprouts up out the middle. I was like, man, they got Lake Michigan out here, ma. But it was a place where I became bicultural and began to see that the way that I communicated in Schaumburg, when I went back to Chicago for spring break, they weren't talking like that. So I had to what we call in our community, African American, like code switch. But it's contextualization. There's not a code, not switching. It's contextualizing my leadership, my brand, my persona to this new environment so that transfer takes place. Because that's the thing in leadership and in business, you want transfer to take place. If you're a communicator, you want to make a connection with somebody in the room so that transfer takes place. And if you do it, and if you're speaking another language, transfer won't take place, and a subscriber won't subscribe, or a transaction, or revenue won't be generated. Whatever metric you want to do, if there's not contextualization, there won't be an exchange. And so I just remember that early on, that the hanging participles that I used in Inglewood, when I was trying to make a joke in Schaumburg, I had to switch it and flip it up, or it was going to be no transfer. And that, for me, that was leadership, because for me, it was always a game of addition. I'm trying to add people to my team, even if it was just my cafeteria team, right? We sit together in the cafeteria, or the people on the basketball team that I kick it with. this is how I want to show up to these individuals. My tribe is the words today in business.
Shout out to the Cohen Cougar sophomore year B team that every day practiced on what they called the shelf, which was a court that had no place in the gym, but maybe like a dusty corner. I think there was only half of a court up there, and that is where Mr. Tim Jones and I started our illustrious attempt at making the NBA at 13 years of age. Shout out to the B team.
That's right. The old dreams die hard. Those die really hard.
Yeah. I almost want to reflect a little bit of the same question back to you, Tim, because I'm maybe one of the few people that have known you since childhood that are tuning in. Mm-hmm. And I think as you talk about the transition that you made moving to Schaumburg to Chicago, how I experienced you as a leader, at a young age, was your ability to make huge impacts saying very little. Mm-hmm. And at the time, that actually was through your humor. Mm-hmm. It was through the headlining that you would do, whether that was in the middle of class or with a group of friends. Like the impact that you had saying so few words was just palpable. I mean, it was just in the room. And I think over the years, you've done an incredible job of applying that impact to bigger and, in many cases, more meaningful topics. And it's almost as if I listen to you today on topics like leadership, on topics like community, and even religion. I listen to you today the same way that I listen to you on topics like the basketball game or who was crushing on who in third grade. I listened intently because I knew that there were some headlines coming through that mattered. Mm-hmm. And to me, that has always been the thread that has tied through your leadership as it's evolved over the years.
Well, I think that is probably just a superpower. We all have these superpowers. You have this unique ability to make these human connections. And I feel like I had that superpower as well, is to make human connection with people, whether we're sitting across from each other on the train or across from each other having tea or coffee with each other. Mm-hmm. Like, I care deeply about people. And the questions that I ask, the depth is just naturally a part of it because they know how much I care. And then I want people to hear my heart. I'm never starting from up here. And I think that's why I make connections, and that's why I endear people to my journey, to my life, where they even want to hear from me, right? There's some people that follow me, or I looked at myself like, man, why would they be listening to me? They're this person, or they're up here, but there was some type of human connection that was made, and that's what I've always challenged myself to do. And oftentimes it happened through my sense of humor, or humor, because the tension is normally too thick to go right to it. And so you got to figure out ways around that tension. Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I believe you saw.
Love that. Let's fast forward to the book. Who should be reading your book and why?
I think from just a target market standpoint, juniors and seniors in high school on up, right? Because these are people for that particular age. That frontal lobe ain't even been tapped yet. It's not ripe. It hasn't been fully developed. And so there's some informing that needs to take place. And not just that, every day for the next 7 or 10 years, a boomer turns 65. Which means that next generation is the now generation, right? They're not in the batter circle warming up. They in the box, and they need to know how to hold the bat because the pitch is coming and they need to be able to swing. So that generation needs this information about how to understand the high highs and the low lows of life and to hold on. That's the only requirement, right? We really thought 2020 was cursed, and it was curved. And all we had to do was hold on. And so it's for that group, juniors and seniors in high school on up, but particularly those that feel like they have some type of contribution to offer to the world. And this is down to the condo association president up into the person who is knocking on the door of the C-suite, the person that is partner and wants to continue to scale their leadership and community engagement and corporate engagement. It's really for those people who's just something is on the inside and it's not going away. It's not going away because it has to be out of you. And this book is an exercise in reverse suppression. There's 31 chapters, and every chapter is helping you get that gift, skill, ability, or talent on the outside of you because somebody is waiting for it. There's so many inboxes that I get of people who are telling me that their life is being transformed. Like I post on Twitter. So that's 140 characters that's impacting somebody's life. Commercials did it with 30 seconds. I still remember Spud McKenzie and the Bud Light and the Budweiser girls and all that. That was in 30 seconds. And so we have the ability to impact in 30 seconds, 140 characters, 6-hour work week. There is so much opportunity for us to have impact, and we just have to get it out of us. That is the only requirement, is to die empty.
Yeah, I love that. You know, one of the themes that's in the book is the idea of, you said, navigating the highs and the lows.
Right.
You know, the title of this episode is turning breakdowns into breakthroughs. You do such a good job of normalizing it, we'll call it in this case, breakdowns or the lows. And so I could imagine how if we earlier in life can be more accepting of, more comfortable with the fact that, you know, we will have highs and lows, right, that our job is to remain right on schedule and acknowledge some of these breakdowns, we're going to be stronger. And so I love the demographic of this book. At the same time, you know, knowing your content and having read some of it myself, it's really for anybody, even for, you know, someone like myself, maybe not necessarily a junior in high school. It allows me to put into perspective some of the shifts and the changes that I've seen in myself as a leader, as a brother, as a business partner, and as a friend. So let's talk a little bit about this concept of breakdowns and breakthroughs. Mm-hmm. You know, you say, you know, turn your breakdowns into breakthroughs. The word breakdown itself is visceral. Mm-hmm. Like who wants to have a breakdown? Like, you're not going to find that on my Instagram handle. So right. let's talk a little bit about that, like the power in acceptance of breakdowns and how we can then turn those into breakthroughs.
Yeah, I think it's just really understanding the kind of the ebb and flow of life, right? It's unfair on the cemetery. They put, you know, 1981, a dash, and then when the person dies, or 1952, a dash, that dash should really be a squiggly line. It's unfair to put a dash because life is filled with these high highs and these low lows. But it's important to know that that life is going to come back around full circle to you, that it's only a season, right? Back to that it's only a season. Yep. And don't throw away the rest of your life for this small season or this fall moment. But it's really just to normalize life. Again, that battles are part of life, slumps are part of life, breakdowns are a part of life, but really how you're judged and how you're evaluated is your ability to respond to it. It's to get up and prepare for battle the next day. And that's what it is, right? There's two ways to handle, right? If you want a pain-free life or problem-free life, you got two options. You can die, right? Go be with your creator, wherever you believe, whatever is after this, or you can die before you die. And that's to realize that what's happening, don't let what's happening externally affect you internally. Right? The line in the grocery store, it's not going to move. There's going to be traffic. There's going to be stop blowing your horn. Right? It's just a natural part of life. And you have to die to being thrown off of your square by minor distractions or disappointments. Those are a natural part of scale, and going higher is disappointment, is letdowns. is people failing to meet expectation. But I think the most important thing is for you to not have a response to every joke of life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what die before you die means.
Without getting too personal, I wonder if I could ask you, Tim, what's an example of a breakdown that you've experienced in your life that you've been able to identify and move through with this understanding or this philosophy of ensuring that kind of consistency from high to low? Like what breakdown have you turned into a breakthrough?
Well, I mean, this is a lot of this stuff that I'll share is the first time that anybody has heard this, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was born with a hole in my heart. I was born to without a father. I was sexually abused as a kid. I had a divorce in 2018. And I just struggled with those high highs and low lows of life for many years. And I really didn't understand, why we were poor in Schaumburg, right? I didn't understand why. I used to tell my mom, the lights off again. I used to call her when I got home. And she's like, oh, I forgot to pay the bill, baby. No, she didn't have it. She didn't have it. Every year that we were in Schaumburg, we were on something called Section 8. And my mom got a job while on Section 8. And if you start making money, the Section 8 decreases. It's subsidized housing for people who don't know what Section 8 is. So you get a chance to pay $400 instead of $1,200. But when she was working there, working at the post office, the rent would go up. So that means that I wouldn't have lunch money. That means the light bill wouldn't get paid. And we had to navigate those turns in life. So for me, it was just something that naturally came with life, right? Some people don't get to decide who their parents, none of us get to decide who their parents are. But, I didn't come from that type of stock, that type of wealth, that type of, Christian character, morals, values. Like we struggle, right? We struggle with decision making, and it shows throughout my family, the tree, that we struggle with quality decision making. And for me, I wanted to get a handle on that. And so when I had kids, they were born within, when I was married, right? Within wedlock. And I'm a really good dad to my kids. And so I tried to, reverse all the things that really made life hard for me. And I did that by just digging and not pulling myself up by my bootstrap, but really just realizing that this isn't happening to me, it's happening for me. And now I got to show somebody else how to navigate these low lows. So they've been countless. It's not one thing, Anthony. Yeah. It's countless.
Well, I mean, I want to pause and thank you for sharing. Thank you for your continued transparency and your demonstration of, again, not only what you preach, you practice it. It's interesting. Even there were a couple of things that even I learned as you took us through a couple of the challenges that you faced over your life. Obviously, you're an extremely dynamic person, and I'm constantly learning about who you are and what makes you the leader that you are today. But just your ability to share, like the way that you just did, is an absolute skill, and it's a differentiator in the way that you lead. Like that ability to share, that ability to be transparent, like it draws people in, it establishes trust. And particularly today, more than ever, it creates safety for people to live their truth as well too. I think one of the first, when you talk about how do you turn breakdowns into breakthroughs, one of the first things is acknowledgement.
Right.
It's witnessing. And it's expressing the fact that I am not a highlight reel on Instagram, that I'm made of the highs and the lows. And here's 3 or 4 of them. And it's, I've got to imagine that's been extremely healthy for you as a leader, as a man, as a friend. And it's also extremely healthy for those around you to see that modeled and demonstrated. And I want to thank you for that.
Well, thank you.
So I want to go back to, I mean, if you're listening and you're not interested in reading this book already, what'd you say it was, 32 chapters? There's so much to learn, not just in this book, but I think in some of these philosophies, and it's not just applied to business, but it is to life. I want to go back to actually the process of writing a book.
Yeah.
Because I think there's some folks that tune in, whether they're solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, or folks that might just have a dream of telling a story one day. And not everybody is good with their voice, but some people really do like to write, and some people might have a dream of writing a book. What was your process of writing a book? Like did you wake up one day and say, I want to write a book? Once you made that decision, what was like step 1, 2, and 3? And you can get super tactical in terms of like, well, I thought of the title first, and then I brought in an editor. I'm curious as to what the process was like for you.
Well, I think for me, because I spent so many years content creating, right? When I was writing those speeches in 2006 to put over tracks, there's some songs that don't make the album. And what do you do with that content? Right? When I was a millennial pastor, there were sermons that didn't make Sunday morning, right? Where your name don't get called. What do you do with that content? When I got on the show, would provide motivational and inspiration on Black Talk Radio 2 years ago, and I was providing these 2-minute motivational thoughts to people re-entering the workforce, climbing the corporate ladder, entrepreneur. What do you do with that content? All this sharing on social media, on LinkedIn, I do these leadership blogs. How do I aggregate all that work into some piece of content? And I was like, I have to write a book. And I remember at one point when I talked to you guys, I said I was scrapping the idea of writing a book and I was going to do something else. I'm going to do an app and I'm going to put all the content on the app.
Yeah.
But it was just like, nope, I have to put this into book form. And so what I had to do last year is, I heard Stephen King talk about this, about creating a private domain. I had to create a space and time where I began to aggregate this content so that I can begin to make a beginning, middle, and end to it, right? It had to make sense. It had to pack a punch. It had to have my tone and not be Sunday morning, not be the radio, not be social media, but be, again, contextualized to be placed in book form. And once I got past that, once I got my private domain, I was able to, chapter 1 is going to be about, I'm going to take people from when they feel it stirring in their bodies about who they're called to be. Then I'm going to take it to chapter 5 when they're like, man, fuck all of this. I'm not writing a book. I'm about to go back into corporate and just slave for the man or whatever. And then take them from there to just like, and I just basically figured out a way to make a beginning, middle, and end. But what happens is there's this voice, and I don't know where this voice comes from, that's telling you that you can't. Mm-hmm. And it ain't nobody from the outside. Mm-hmm. It's within. And I think, just really quickly, I think it comes from the trauma that we experience, right? There's a psychology that talks about we all of us have a pain body, a place, a repository where all the trauma and the shit that happened to us is stored within us. And depending on the type of trauma that you've had, you either remember too much of it or you remember too little of it, which basically means you don't have the ability to reason. You can't find the middle ground. And I think that's that voice is like, no. And then and you're saying, no, I can't. And so the ability to find that middle ground, that's where you need help. That's where you need connections with Thoughtium. That's why you need to follow certain people and not be following Soldier Boy, right? So you can get informed and to find the middle ground. So many of us, because of the trauma that we experience, particularly the trauma that we haven't addressed, right? That's a lot of the problem that's going on in corporate now is the undiagnosed social mental health problems. Not the folks who tell you I have internal pain or my boy Kid Cudi, there's something inside of me that's going on with me that's not good. So the ability to find a middle ground, once I suppress that voice and let that real voice speak for me, the book was done and in the hands of a publisher in June. And when I got back from my 40th celebration, I said, we're going to launch this thing on New Year's Day so that people can have it to accompany them for their New Year's Day resolutions, New Year, whatever you want to do. You'll have a guide if you want it for $15 at IamTimJones.com.
I'm just so fascinated with the folks that create that private domain, as you mentioned, and are able to kind of scan the messages, the mediums that you've been playing in over the course of the last 15, 20 years, and put together a beginning, a middle, and an end in written form. I mean, it's one of the most timeless mediums that we have.
Yeah.
As much as I'd love to think that this episode of Navigating Now is going to live, 300 years, and it might. I think your book has a better chance in a time capsule or even in digital form. Yeah. How has writing a book changed your relationship to your core content? Like, has it challenged you to focus more? Are there aspects of writing a book that are maybe a little unhealthy to your toolbox, because your toolbox is more a little bit free flowing and off the cuff, and this has to be super defined? Like, how has writing a book changed you as a speaker, an author, a writer?
This is why you're good at what you do. That's an excellent question, Anthony. And I feel like my words, when I share daily, the weight of it's not just I'm just sharing and let me go check my likes at 12. It's like they have weight to them. And I don't know if you know this, in South America, they're not counting money no more to decide if this is $15 or what you gave. They weighing it. And I feel like, just like my words, people not just looking at it and being like, oh, look at Tim, he's cute, he's sharing. They're weighing this thing to see how it fits into their life. And so for me, when I share it, I'm weighing the weight of it, and the impact of it is much more meaningful now, right? It's not just 140 characters anymore. It is something that can help somebody deal with the loss of their father. And they say things like, I'll never recover from this, but because I read this chapter, I can recover from this. And so that means a lot. And people don't get a chance to see those messages that I get. But I think what's changed, Anthony, since the release of the book and working on book 2 is like the weight of it. And I don't think we realize the weight of our work, the weight of our output is not just for, well, maybe it is to meet your metrics, to meet your goals. But there needs to be something where it's like this pay, it's like the money in South America. It needs to be weighed so people can really trust and believe that this is going to have an impact, that a transfer is really worth making with you.
That is super interesting.
That's deep.
Yeah, no, I like that though. Because again, I see your platform as one of the most multi-channel. You're 147 characters or less on Twitter. I think that's, what is it, 147, 152?
I thought it was 140. If they're giving me more than that, then
140. They're giving me 147. They're giving you 140 because they know you could do it in less. 140 characters on Twitter. You've got message in a 20-second or less Instagram story, of which you do a phenomenal job. You've got long form in LinkedIn and Instagram. You've got the spoken word, whether that's the speaking that you do in the community, the speaking that you do at graduations within organizations, and you've got live platforms like this.
Right.
You and I also appreciate sometimes not weighing our words, and how just putting content out there, and of course, yes, speaking from the heart and speaking from your experience and your truth, but not after every tweet or after every Instagram, weighing your message, or even trying to see how other people are weighing it. Like, there's a part of your platform that is just pour it out, empty it out. But I wonder if the book was an opportunity for you to create an asset, a tool, a piece of value that will be weighed, right? That will have very specific value in perpetuity, year over year over year, and it's a very specific place that people can go and reflect back all of the ones and the twos and the threes and the 17s and the 14s that you've been putting out there. You know, you and I subscribe to one is greater than zero. It's the ones and the threes and the 17s. It's not the 10,000 followers or the 10 million likes. It's the ones and the sevens and the eights. But if I'm you, writing a book feels a little bit different because it's a little bit more of a timeless artifact that does carry some weight, correct?
Oh, I think for me, and this is back to personal, and we've been navigating personal and professional. You know, my girls are gonna see this when they're high schoolers, when they're in college. My son is gonna see this in 8th grade, and this is gonna be a tool for his life, right? I don't know where I'll be. I hope I'll be right next to him, but this is going to be a tool that will be with them forever and inspire them. And it's their dad that provided that inspiration. And so when you talk about perpetuity and, you know, it's legacy for me, right? It's the girls, the kids were going to be at the book release. They were part of the marketing for the book. They're a part of the marketing for a book for a reason. Like they should be intertwined in this work because they are my number one motivation. My mom is my number one inspiration. They're my number one motivation. And so when you talk about that, the weight and the value of it is 3 little people behind this thing. And not to mention the countless friends and families that they just love me to death because I had the courage. Like they think I move with this supernatural courage to do something like this. But that's what the book is about, that it's in all of us, right? It's in all of us.
You and I have talked before about the philosophy of document versus creating. And there's a school of thought out there that says, document, don't create. And that gets you in the mentality of being comfortable just putting your word and your brand and your ideas out there, regardless of if it's perfect or not. But I'd almost argue, even in this conversation, I think it's more document and create. I do think as a creator, as an entrepreneur, as a human, there are moments in your life where you do have an opportunity to pause and create a snapshot of your expertise, where you're at in life, some learnings from a lesson, whatever that might be. And your ability to create something in that moment, to your point, allows that your perspective to live a lot longer than the ones and the 16s and the 17s that are as equally as important. And I give you a lot of credit for acknowledging, the opportunity to both document on a day-to-day basis and create something that could potentially be timeless and your sons and your daughters could be reading it years from now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm under this impression that I'll never run out of content. Right now, how much of it is good? Like, it's not up for me to decide. My job is to I think you got it right, is to document the content. Right? That's the emergence of both of those, is to document the content. And I decided that I wanted to do it publicly and consistently, and I wanted to do it authentically. There's nothing that I tell people. This is funny because I was going to mention this. In college, I was the NAACP president for 2 years in a row. It's a civil rights organization. And at the same time, I was taking Black Studies classes. And we got a test back, and I got like a 70 something on the test. And somebody said, "Hey, man, ain't you the president of NAACP?" Like, that doesn't mean that I woke up with, marching. Like, it's the same thing with this motivation and inspiration. I am in the classroom with you. I am not your guru, right? Tony Robbins, I am not your guru. I am not your savior. I am your peer. Remember, I redistributed everything that I had to my community around me to put us on equal playing field. So I don't have a monopoly on motivation and inspiration. I tap in. I don't have a monopoly on it. And it's for everybody, man. This ability to see beyond what you see.
I love that. I was just having this conversation with a few folks on our team the other day about what are the greatest aspects of building a company. And I know a lot of people could say, building something from the ground up, having total control and autonomy, even having the ability to impact the lives of your employees, your clients, your community, your network. I would argue that above all of that is my ability to be within a marketplace, doing things more quickly, with less direction, and without any handcuffs whatsoever amongst my peers in a way that motivates them to take some shots, whether they're starting a business or not. Like my ability to demonstrate aspects of leadership, some of which might not even be proven, but my ability to be in the arena and demonstrating amongst my peers and just giving them that nudge to try something, even if they don't have the right script or the right outline or even the right concept. Like that is my greatest ambition, and also my biggest gratification of being an entrepreneur. And I know that is the case for you too, because I actually think that is our common ground. That is our connection point, is being amongst each other and demonstrating these best practices in a way that indirectly motivates each other to pour it all out, to leave no potential.
Mm-hmm. And right, that's the idea of about a community or a tribe, is that iron sharpens iron. We fuel each other. And again, no one cares who gets the credit, and everyone gives credit where credit is due. Those are the type of communities that I want to be in.
Yep. If you all are thinking about maybe new ways to enter 2022, or you're starting to think about the people that you're surrounding yourself with and how they're impacting your leadership, your direction in career or life, man, I would just argue to have people like Tim around you. You know, those people who take more pride and joy in being amongst you as a peer and leading with you than the sage on stage or even the subject matter expert. You know, because, you know, Tim, I've never seen you as a guru, but I've absolutely seen you as a peer and as a brother who sits right next to me and drafts off of me and allows me to draft off of you. And that's something that I'll never take for granted. And I know our community thanks you for that as well too. Before we wrap up, we do have a question, and this is actually coming from one of our own. Amanda from our team was really inspired by one of your most recent posts. I believe it was on LinkedIn. You had talked about leaving anything that does not serve you in 2021. And Amanda wants to know, what are you, Tim, leaving in 2021?
Shout out to Amanda. Congratulations on the nuptials.
She's got a new last name.
Right, she got a new last name. Somebody put a ring on it. Congratulations. I think for me, just correcting my response to minor frustrations and disappointments. And, you know, the big things don't knock me down, right? It's those little minor frustrations and disappointments that cause me to have these ego disturbances. What my therapist calls ego disturbances, that I said that I was leaving in 2021, that the grocery store line, I know y'all need some more cashiers. Come on, that wasn't gonna be me. And I never did that audibly, externally, but it was this internal energy that disrupted everything on the inside of me. Now I'm thinking about them need more cashiers. I'm not an operations manager, I'm a creator. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what happens when we get offset. It creates this imbalance because we've allowed a minor frustration or disappointment to really just become the main focus. And the main focus is, right, what you've been placed here to do. And you know what you've been placed here to do. And if you haven't found out what you've been placed here to do.
Yeah, no, and it's the book is titled Leave No Potential on the Table. It is available at IamTimJones.com, correct?
Please do.
IamTimJones.com.
And Amazon if you want it tonight.
Yep.
Or you blink.
Yeah, either one. You know, it is a wonderful, let's call it, creation of Tim's leadership, of his practitionership, of his influence. And it sounds like it's just the beginning. Book 2 is in the works.
It's on deck. It's on deck. It's happening.
And is this just because like you really got into the flow and like you want to continue that flow, or is it also just like the first book wasn't enough? Like you've got more to say.
Well, I haven't run out of content. I think it's important to know that I know the process now, right?
Yep.
You mentioned that earlier. Now I know the process. Now I know what a private domain is for me and my writing style. And it's like, look out.
I love it. Well, best of luck to you on the start of your second book. I know that's one of a million things that you're going to be involved in 2022. Yep. I am always so grateful for your friendship, Tim, for your leadership. We've done 70 episodes here in the Navigating Now Virtual Roundtable series, and the episodes that you've been involved in, I know, have been some of the most impactful and influential, not just to me and my team, but our community at large. If we could have you on every week, we absolutely would. Tim Jones, thank you so much for joining, and I can't wait to do 2022 with you.
I look forward to it. Thank you for the opportunity, guys. I love your Thoughtium.
Thanks, Tim. We want to remind everybody that 2022 is more of some of the best topics in leadership and some of the best leaders here in the greater Chicago area and across the country. Next week, we have episode 71, and we're inviting Gina Anderson Cohen, the founder of A Sweat Life, to the table. Gina is a business owner, a local leader here, and she has a lot to say about building community through successful partnerships. Talk a lot about partnerships here, whether that's brand, whether that's business, or even if it's just life partnership and its ability to impact and elevate your ability as a leader. And we're going to be getting into that with Gina next week. So really, really looking forward to spending every Thursday afternoon with you all. As always, we go live at 3:00 every Thursday. This year, we look to bring you more of some of these great conversations. We look to also have some live sessions that are done in the same room as we, hopefully can come back together and bring more people into the discussion. But we would also love to hear from you. So as you tune into these on LinkedIn and YouTube, if you want to leave some comments or even some potential topics that you'd like to unpack with us, we would love to get your feedback. Until then, everybody have a wonderful week, and we look forward to seeing you next Thursday. So long.